My name is Kevin Chege from Inter-Society. Welcome to this second session on the third day of the Genious Forum. I'll be moderating this session on marketing, brand positioning, digital marketing and product development. I'm joined rather by Giovanni Seppia. He's the External Relations Manager for EURID, EURID being the European Registry of Internet Domain Names. Andrew Mack from AM Global Consulting, and it's good to tell us about the work they do for PIR and .ngo. And I'm joined by someone who's stepping in for Hamza. Perhaps you give me a name. Okay, replace Hamza. Sorry, what's your name? Taha. Okay, we have Taha from Genious, who will be speaking on behalf of Genius. Hamza could not be in this morning. So without wasting much time, I'll introduce Giovanni and allow him to make a presentation on .eu. Welcome.
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and thanks again for the opportunity to speak at this forum. Is this for, yes, no? I'm just looking for the one for the slides. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Yes, it works. So I will speak about our experience as a registry manager of the .eu top-level domain, and what we have been doing to promote .eu and to make the .eu a brand in Europe, something the registrants, the end users, can look at and think that there is an added value when registering a .eu domain. I'd like to start with some sort of provocative question, if domain names are still needed, because in the past years we had two sort of contradictory factors. The first one is the massive advent of social media. So you may get online much easier and much faster when you open a Facebook account, a Twitter account. But at the other end, we have seen the massive introduction of new GTLDs by Icon. And so at one end, again, we see that in some countries, social media are now predominant against the local top-level domain. But in other countries, we also see that there is good uptake of new GTLDs. And, you know, there are some pros and cons when deciding to go online via social media, as there are with domain names, of course. But at the same time, we have seen that domain names, especially local domain names, so the local country code top-level domains, they are still there and they are still functional to the local communities. And this is important to underline and always have in mind when thinking, especially if you are a registry, a CCTLD registry manager, thinking if it's still valuable having a local CCTLDs. And our answer is yes, it is still valuable to have a local CCTLD because it shows a local presence and it shows that you are catering for a local community. I'm going to say something about what we have been doing to market .eu. And .eu is quite a recent, a new top-level domain. We are currently this year celebrating the 10th anniversary. We went on the market on the 7th of April of 10 years ago, exactly. And, you know, 2006, the big boom, the big uptake of domain name was gone already. I mean, the golden age of domain names where many local country codes, especially in Europe and in several countries of Asia and also in North America, they were seeing massive registrations. Well, this kind of golden age was already gone in 2006. So we had to, you know, already assume that our registrations would have been not, you know, as much as in the early years of the third millennium. So what we have done is to try to understand what is the choice of European residents, because the .eu is only for European residents. So we are talking about 31 countries in Europe, the 28 members of the European Union, plus 3 countries of the European Economic Area. And we have seen that most of these people, they are registering .com, the local TLD, and then we have seen that since the .eu was launched, the .eu has become the third choice. So if they see that the .com is not available and .com domains are, very much exhausted, if they see that .local is not available, they go for .eu. But they also go for .eu because .eu, as I was saying at the beginning, has some added values. And first of all, it's a new domain name. It clearly matches you with the geographical identity, which is the European Union identity. And also there are some administrative procedures that we do in a much faster way. And also we have enforced some rules, especially privacy rules, that are very strict in the case of .eu domain names. And those have been highly appreciated by our registrars and registrants. And so there is not only a sense of branding linked to a specific geographical area, but there is also a sense of value because of the rules we have enforced. Just to give you some statistics about .eu, we have currently a bit over 3.8 million domain names, with a renewal rate that is between 77 and 79% on average. And we have 734 accredited registrars. They are accredited by us through a very specific procedure that goes through some technical checks and also financial checks and administrative checks. And we do require at present a prepayment, which is a sort of guarantee that is deposited in a specific registrar account to make sure that the registrar is financially sustainable against the operations they may do with us. And we have most of our .eu domain names are registered by residents in Germany, followed by the Netherlands, France, Poland, United Kingdom. There is quite a good distribution, but also the distribution that in somehow represents the internet penetration across Europe, across the European Union, because Germany is the country where internet is mostly used with the highest internet penetration, and therefore it was quite predictable that most of our domain names were going to be registered by German registrants. And going back to the point that was just made by about accredited registrars. Honestly, I don't know how many of these 734 registrars at the end of Q4 2015 are also ICANN accredited registrar. I assume that out of the 200 overseas registrars we have, almost all of them are also ICANN accredited. But I also want to say that those registrars that we have, they are accountable to their local, let's say, customers, to the customers they serve. So no matter if they are accredited by ICANN, what it counts for us is that they are accredited by us by our procedure. There is a very strict accountability process towards us that is enforced. And so the fact that a registrar, a company, is also an ICANN accredited registrar might be something extra, but for many of us and for many registries in Europe, it doesn't represent any extra value. It's just something that the registrar does at the top of what it is doing with the local TLD, but again is not representing an extra added value. Yeah, the point of my presentation is how to brand your extension. So as I said at the beginning, we do believe that local TLDs, they still represent a great value for local communities. And picking up the right extension for companies, individuals, can be even a tougher exercise these days because of the massive introduction of new GTLDs. Well, first of all, what we have been doing, as I said, is to understand the market, which is the market, which has been the market, and which is the market of .eu. We should try also to anticipate some trends. And again, it's not so difficult nowadays to anticipate certain trends, especially if you work for a specific market. In our case, we knew, and everybody knew, that a few years ago there was this plan to introduce new GTLDs. So we started mapping our registrars and seeing how many of them would have been very much involved in promoting the new GTLDs. So what we have been doing in the past couple of years is that we have somehow focused on those registrars accredited by us that are not in partnership or are not fully into a new GTLDs, because we knew that by being in such a situation, the registrar would have immediately gone for promoting more the new GTLD rather than the old or the a bit more historical TLDs. And in fact, that confirmed to be true. And we have established a very strong network, a very strong partnership with our top 400 registrars. And they were very honest to us to say, well, I'm sorry to tell you that for the next couple of years, because I'm a partner, a shareholder, or whatever involvement, engagement they have in a new GTLDs, they were very honest to say, well, I'm not going to promote .eu as much as I was doing in the past, because I have to reach a sort of break-even point that repays me of what I've invested in the new GTLDs. And so that is the moment when we start to say, okay, let's focus on those that are not so much involved in the new GTLDs and can focus on the .eu as well as other local country codes. And so it's very important to have this strong partnership, strong engagement with your registrar community, because if you are working in a registrant model, the registrars are those who are going to drive your sales, are going to drive your growth. And also, and that's why I think what the previous panel was very important, try to engage internationally. If you are a registry manager, try to engage internationally via one of the CCTLD regional organizations. It is very important to learn from others' best practices, from what's going on in other countries. And so it's very important that you know, for instance, the behavior of certain registries that have a lot of similarities with your registry, and learn what they are doing and see if you can somehow, I'm not saying copying, but take inspiration from what they are doing and customize what they are doing to your local environment. As I said, we have been trying to make the .eu appealing from the administrative perspective, to make the life of our registrars as simple as possible, to provide great customer service to our registrars. We have been trying also to look at the right testimonials. The more you see a dot around in a magazine, in a billboard, wherever you are exposed to external visuals, the more you think, there might be a value for me also to have such kind of registration. And also, again, if you're working with your registrars, try to understand that probably your registrars, especially if they are ICANN accredited registrars, they do not have only you as an extension in a basket, but they do have a basket full of extensions, and therefore they do try to promote all those extensions, and they have time frames. They know in advance, very much in advance, especially for the international registrars, they know very well in advance when they're going to promote a certain extension rather than another. And therefore, you must be in the top shelf space of those registrars, and you must ensure yourself that your extension has a prominent position in the basket of those registrars whenever they start the promotion. To have such a prominent position, you may have ad hoc deals with those registrars so that you are sure they will continue to promote your dot together with other dots, of course. And to brand even more your extension, our experience has taught us that we should explore new ideas and make sure that via these new ideas we can at some point reach out to different communities and by reaching out to different communities further promoting the dot. And this is a sort of case study which started in 2014, and this year is going to be the third year we are having that, and it's the .eu Web Awards, which anybody can do at local level. So what we have been doing is to have an online competition, a bit like the Oscars, for the .eu registrants. So the more you nominate a .eu site, the more chances you have that this site is shortlisted. And the purpose is to celebrate the best websites, not only in terms of how much they have been nominated, but in terms of being evaluated by a jury made of different people with different backgrounds, including technical backgrounds, commercial background, legal background, who at the end are assessing the website that has been nominated, and they come up with the winner of each of the 5 categories. And this for us has been really a sort of major adventure, which honestly, when we started, we believe it may have worked, but we didn't know how much it would have worked. And it worked so well that this is going to be the third year. So we have seen a great media coverage for what we have been doing in Europe. We have seen that by this kind of competition, we have new testimonials and more testimonials to showcase on our site. And again, the target audience, as you can see in this slide, is very broad. So not only the EU registrants and registrars, but the European business community, the internet community at worldwide level, because registrars can be from anywhere in the world. So it's really a big target audience to brand your dot. And in our case, again, we ended up having 3 finalists for each of the 5 categories, and those were the categories. So there were 5 categories: one for the leaders, which are well-known industries, enterprises, which have decided to go for having a .eu; the rising stars for small and medium enterprises, startup enterprises; the laurels for community, educational and cultural activities; the house of .eu for entertainment websites; and the better world for environmental websites. And so when we started the first year in 2014, we had about 300 unique nominations, and we ended last year having more than 1,500 nominations. So last year jury was a bit killed by the number of nominations, because we didn't expect it. And we have made a gala, like really a Oscar gala, that you can make sure that that is one of the best way to brand with the local community, in our case with Europe, what we have been doing, because we have been inviting all those who were shortlisted, all the registrars that are, and this is very important, those registrars that through whom the domain name which was shortlisted was registered. And so we have made really a big investment in this, but it was a great way to brand the .eu. So try to explore similar initiatives at local level if you are a registry manager, to make sure that via testimonials, and by making sure that those testimonials are well profiled and highlighted by you, so they feel there is a support for using such an extension, you can get a lot out of these kind of actions, and you know those kind of actions, they can indeed help you to brand your dot. And this is the kind of communications that we have put up for the Web Awards. So it's really a lot. We have done a lot for social media, press releases, display campaigns via Google, a lot of advertisements and a lot of banners on our sites. So it's really creating a lot of buzz around something that, again, at the end was very positive for us. And those are just some press pics from what we have seen in the days before or after the gala, which was in November last year. So this is just to sum up what I just said, why these kind of initiatives are good to brand your dot, your extension. And again, my final recommendation is that if you are a registry manager and you work in a registrant model, registrars are really the key drivers of your efforts. So make sure that not only you have incentive for those registrars, but there is a dialogue open, and the dialogue should be a two sort of lane dialogue. So just you speak to them, but you should listen to them. They should be able to speak to you. You should be able to communicate promptly what you're doing, what you're expecting, and they should have the same kind of channel and relations towards you, so that, again, it's not one-way communication, but it's a two-way communication that enables you to grow in the market. And this is, I believe, the best ingredient in the recipe we are doing daily in our registry management. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any question now or at the end of the panel.
Yeah, I think we'll have a round of applause for Giovanni. Thank you very much, Giovanni. Moving on quickly, because I see we are a bit over time, I'd like to invite Mr. Andrew Mack from AM Global Consulting to talk a bit about his experience with brand positioning and product development. I'll give you 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. And I will do my best to be as quick as I can without speaking so fast that the translators can't follow me, because that's been something that people have told me over the years. As Kevin said, my name is Andrew Mack. I'm with AM Global Consulting. We're a 10-year-old consulting firm that, based out of Washington, D.C., works extensively with Africa, Latin America, and other parts of the Global South. We work with you. This is now my 3rd Africa DNS forum that I've spoken at, so it's a great honor to be here. Thank you, Barack, and thank you, everyone. We have a lot of interesting experience, one of which, a big piece of which, is the work that we've done with the Public Interest Registry on the design and the launch of .ngo. But we've also worked with a number of other new GTLDs and some CCs trying to get into or better understand the African continent. And so my purpose in this is to go through the 2 issues that Kevin has asked me to talk about, and to look at it from both the inside and the outside. That is to say, for example, with branding, looking at our brand in Africa and then looking at our brand facing Africa. And what do I mean? Well, I'll explain in just a second. So from the brand positioning perspective, what is our brand? If we're talking about a CCTLD, what does the brand look like? How is it distinct? How does it distinguish between the CCTLDs? What does it look like to the outside world? This is extremely important. You saw the graphic before about all of the different names that are out there, and it is true. There is a tremendous amount of competition out there. But there was, in advance, a tremendous amount of competition within the CCTLD community just on the continent. And so we have a unique situation, I think, in Africa, as compared to, for example, in Europe with .eu. We have a unique situation in Africa where there's actually already been lots and lots of product. Then you add to that even more product, and knowing who you are and being able to explain who you are to the outside world, why it is important, MyCC, to you, that's a tremendously valuable thing. And in a lot of cases, from the outside world perspective, that hasn't been hugely clear in the past. One of the big things that we've seen as we work with clients all around the world, and as they look at Africa, is that it's not just a question of which CCTLD or which new TLD I'm interested in, but in fact, the bigger question is about inertia. Do I do something, or do I do nothing? Do I do something new, or do I stick with what I have? And what we have found across the world is that there is a tremendous amount of inactivity, in part because people say, okay, fine, this is a great idea, this is interesting, this is exciting, getting a .eu, getting a .ke may be great, but if I already have something else, what's causing me to get up off of my southern hemisphere and go and move? So, what's our brand? What's our CCTLD? On the opposite side, what's our new GTLD? One of the things that we have seen is that there has been very, very little focus on designing and promoting new GTLDs specifically for emerging markets and specifically for Africa. Now, one of the reasons why we're so pleased with and so proud of the work that's been done on .ngo is that it bucks that trend. It's a new GTLD that was specifically designed for the global nonprofit community, and it was specifically designed with communications in conversation with members of the community, especially in Africa. And we've done numerous events in Kenya, South Africa, Cameroon, Senegal, Morocco, specifically to understand what was going on in the nonprofit community in Africa, what were the needs of the community in Africa, what did the community want, and what was the best way to organize this new space online. So the goal there was to design the program with you in mind, or with members of the African nonprofit community in mind. And I think that that's been a great success. It does give us some real lessons for some of the for the new GTLDs, one of which is you got to spend time. You simply have to spend time on the ground. You simply have to engage the markets. Too many of the new GTLDs that we have seen are designed in the global north for the global north. Lastly, I might say on the branding side, the branding, you're really not just branding your CCTLD or your GTLD, you're also branding your ecosystem. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is you're branding to a meaningful extent, how easy is it to work in my country, in my sub-region? How easy is it for me to do this in Kenya or in Nigeria? This speaks to sales channel, the ability to find registrars, resellers, the ability to get payments made, things along those lines. It's tremendously challenging when you speak to other people from outside and trying to get them interested in Africa. One of the first questions they ask me is about how easy is it to do work? How quickly can I complete a transaction? It doesn't really matter, sadly, how much demand there is out there if they feel that they cannot get the job done. I'm sure that makes sense. So we look at them and we're saying, for example, in Nigeria, there are 190 million people perhaps at this stage, right? There should be tremendous demand. But when we talk to potential people who are interested in coming in, whether it's to support .ng or whether it's in support of a new GTLD that's interested in the Nigeria market, one of their big concerns is, how quickly can I start making money? Looking back at this on the branding side, though, I see some tremendous opportunities for people in the Africa DNS space. The clearer we can be on the CCTLD side, the clearer we can be for the marketplace. But also, I think that there's some tremendous opportunities for partnerships between CCTLDs, but either between CCTLDs and each other, or between CCTLDs and some of the new GTLDs that are coming on. And some of this will change with the new .Africa as well. Second thing, I think that nobody right now in the outside world is marketing to Africa. You don't see any money that's being spent by these new GTLDs trying to reach out to Africa. And I've asked myself often, why could that be the case? And I think that's partly to do with the familiarity of a lot of people in the global north. But I think it's partly about our ability to make them see the value that we bring. And so part of this is showing how well the infrastructure works. And part of this is doing a better job of capturing the numbers that are out there and the demand that's out there. And part of it is just building those relationships with some of the people. The simple fact of the matter is that we're not going to just be able to build visibility on the continent through GoDaddy. It just won't happen. So we need to be much more involved than in the past. Lastly, I think that there are possibilities between the CCTLDs and between new GTLDs, as I mentioned before. And I think some of that's going to be around what can we do that's creative? What can we do that's new? Doing the same thing is going to get us a lot of the same results. So I'm thinking that there may be some real opportunities to get this out in the press, to get people fired up about it, and to show them that in fact there's money that can be made. The biggest difficulty that we see around the continent right now is that people just aren't making enough money off of the internet. And to flip that, building sales channel and building that branding, that sense of distinctiveness, we think is really, really important. Now, my second piece that Kevin asked me to, and I'll do this as quickly as I can, is around product development. And I mentioned the .ngo experience. Product development is very interesting for me because what we've seen is that there's not any great mystery in it. The most important thing in product development is spending time on the ground, is actually building a network of people who are your partners in the design of the product itself, and then maintaining that network as you go forward. And one of the things that's been really interesting, over the course of the last, I guess it's 4 years, we've spent building the .ngo program. And that's meant literally meetings with thousands of NGOs. And the thousands of NGOs are now part of our ecosystem, and they're now part of the support team, if you will, for .ngo around the world. And I think that that's extremely important. Very few of the new GTLDs have been built in this direction. And it's difficult sometimes to see what the value add is. So what we would want to do as much as possible is to try to bring these new GTLDs together with people like you to sit down and say, okay, if I have a .ceo, how is that meaningful for people in Africa? What would that look like? And then there should be an opportunity for you to bring together with them, right? Last thing I think on this, a second thing on this is time frame and commitment. What we're seeing often is that the time horizon is very short. So people will say, we get the idea of going into Africa or Latin America. That makes good sense. But we're accustomed to working in Europe. How long will this take? And one of the things that we need to do is to bridge that gap to make sure that people realize that it may take a little bit longer, but that it's a good investment. And that if they have appropriate time expectations, and especially if they have appropriate local partners to pick up the messaging, then that's a viable business opportunity for people in the new GTLD space. And I guess the last thing that I would mention on the branding side, on the product development side, is that products aren't developed one time only. .ngo and many of these new GTLDs, and including some of the CCTLDs, are actually living things. They move over the course of time. They are developed over the course of time. And why is that important? That's important because they need to have the ability to adjust. They need to have the ability to be new and fresh. What is new about .ng, what is new about .ke is something that is going to keep me in the news. It's something that's going to change the perceptions of people in my country. It's going to be something that causes me to make that fundamental change between just having a .com or just having a .org and moving into something that is new. And that is one of the things that we found. We need to create excitement around this program, around the domain name system generally, to get people to move. Because our biggest question is not which of these many names are they going to choose, but are they going to choose at all? My last point, briefly, is about social media, because you asked me to mention it. And all I will say is this. Africans are incredibly active on social media. The mobile Facebook, #1 country use of mobile Facebook on a per capita basis in the world is Nigeria. And yet, what we see is a lot of the efforts to try to do marketing through social media are the same exact methods that you would use in the Global North. And my experience has been that they don't have the same resonance in the Global South, and that is another opportunity for people in this room and in your networks to give advice to some of these outsiders who wish to be participants in your market, to give them some advice on how to reach people using social media. They may not be willing to spend large amounts of time on the ground, hopefully they will, but even in the short term, just to get them interested, if we can get them focused on a little bit of social media, that's great. It's clear to me that they don't know it, and it's clear to me that you can help them to be much, much more efficient in that space. So generally speaking, I think that the most important things, know what you're asking, pick your community carefully, as we have tried to do with .ngo. Let's make it very, very clear where the value is for anyone who's coming in from outside. Let's try to capture those numbers. And then let's link those people up with you, with the experts on the ground. That's really who they're looking for. And I think it's a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrew, for those very insightful thoughts of how you've been carrying out your work. I noticed you said the word "lastly" very many times in the presentation. That's good. Okay, so moving on, I'd like to introduce Mr. Taha Bentaleb. He's the Chief Operating Officer of Genious. Genious is a registrar that operates right outside here from Marrakesh. So Taha, I'd like to give you 5 minutes to talk about some of your experience with Genius. Okay.
Hello everybody. I apologize, but I will speak French. I'm more comfortable by these languages. Donc, pour faire rapide, en fait, nous en tant que registrar marocain, donc on a, pendant les dernières années, on a mis en place un ensemble d'opérations marketing pour pouvoir, on va dire, vulgariser la consommation donc des produits des noms de domaine, donc, et précisément les GTLD. Donc on a mené en partenariat avec VeriSign des opérations assez larges, que ce soit en street marketing, online advertising. On a fait de l'affichage, etc. Mais sans avoir d'impact, que ce soit sur le court au moyen terme, si ce n'est le fait de consolider notre image dans le marché, à savoir, et avoir une notoriété auprès on va dire, des professionnels dans le domaine. Donc, et à un moment donné, on s'est posé la question, est-ce que le fait de mettre en place des stratégies, comme ce qu'a cité Andrew tout à l'heure, qui ont été établies d'une manière globale, donc pour on va dire des pays ou des continents qui sont mieux, on va dire, familiarisés avec ce produit-là, à savoir les noms de domaine, est-ce que le fait de faire, on va dire, du copier-coller au Maroc n'était pas... Est-ce que c'était une bonne idée? Et c'était pas le cas du tout, donc parce que ça n'a pas marché. Donc on a commencé à réfléchir d'une autre manière, et à savoir trouver une stratégie plus locale et qui correspond le mieux, je dirais, à ces consommateurs-là, et trouver comment on pourra parler le même langage pour qu'on puisse être compris. Parce que là, en fait, on avait l'impression qu'ils ne comprenaient pas, en fait, le message qu'on voulait véhiculer à travers ces campagnes-là. Et donc là, on est en train vraiment de faire un travail de fond, à savoir établir une vraie stratégie spécifique pour le marché, pour qu'on puisse effectivement atteindre nos objectifs cette année. Donc voilà, donc on est en train de faire des partenariats d'une manière nationale avec soit des institutions nationales ou du privé, pour qu'on puisse vraiment atteindre ces objectifs-là et aller de l'avant. Donc voilà, c'était juste par rapport à ça. Donc on voulait partager avec vous cette expérience-là, parce que le fait juste de faire du marketing, on va dire d'une manière globale, n'était pas du tout adapté à notre marché. Donc voilà, merci.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bentaleb, for your input. So right now, I think would open for questions from the floor. If there are any questions, kindly walk to the microphone and ask any questions to any of the panelists. Anyone with a okay, I see one question coming. Yes, kindly introduce yourself.
Sorry. Bonjour à tous. Ma question est à Giovanni. Le budget marketing, ça représente quoi par rapport au budget global du point EU? Et est-ce que vous avez fait des études d'impact de toutes ces actions de promotion sur les résultats que vous attendiez et ce qui était réellement réalisé? Merci.
Does it work? No. Okay. Try this one? Okay. Yeah, thank you. If I may, I'll answer. I understand French 100%, but I prefer to answer in English. So the first question, well, let's make it the two questions together. The first question, how much marketing is against our budget? I think currently is about it's a very small amount, I must say, is between 10 and 16%. So on average, I would say 13% of our budget goes to pure marketing actions. And the second question is really interesting because whenever you have, whenever you implement marketing initiatives, some of them are extremely difficult to measure. It's very hard to have KPIs for some of the marketing actions, especially when you decide to go like we did also to have like a massive brand awareness campaign in major European airports. And what could be a KPI for that? The number of travelers passing by that gate when they arrive at the airport or when they board at the airport. It's very difficult to have this kind of KPIs in place, but you can do some exercise to assess the impact of some of your marketing initiatives. And for anything that we do, there are KPIs in place, and I'll be happy, if you drop me an email, I'll be happy to share many data with you. Because for any action that we have been put in place, there's been an assessment not only after the action, but also when the action was taking place, was ongoing. And that's because we are a very special registry. We work under contract with the European Commission. We have a very specific mandate. We have a lot of rules to follow. And that's also another element that probably I missed to underline in my presentation, because although we are in a very extremely heavily regulated environment, we have managed to do well so far. And so the fact that you are working in a very regulated environment should not be seen as a barrier, but sometimes is an extra push for you to do even better. And that's what we have been doing with the marketing initiatives. So we have been trying a lot of marketing initiatives. We have assessed them all. And the main assessment was done during the marketing initiative. And yes, we have reports that we have produced internally and for the European institutions for which we are working about the impact of these marketing initiatives. And again, there are KPIs that differ from one initiative to another, but there are always KPIs you can absolutely establish for what you are doing in marketing. So you have my email address up on the screen, so anytime I'll be happy to share with any of you more details of what we have been doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanni. Before the next question, I think Andrew has a quick follow-up.
Yes, just a quick follow-up. It's an interesting thing because when you're trying to figure out how to determine what part of your budget is marketing, it's actually sometimes very difficult. Working with .ngo as one example, a big piece of that is to try to create active partnerships with NGO leaders and with associations around the world. Is that traditional marketing? Hard to say. it's part of building the ecosystem, and so that's one of the things. I agree very much. It's very challenging to come up with the right kind of KPIs, especially as you go closer to a GTLD that might have more of a community feel to it, right? So we've had two very interesting experiences, one with .ngo, which is the most community and the most diverse kind of community you can imagine around the world, and another one with .club, which is much more of a traditional kind of sale. And in each case, we found that marketing has a lot of creative spins to it. For example, trying to find whether they are alpha NGOs, apex NGOs that are well known as kind of brand ambassadors, or in the case of .club, important clubs. And whether they be football clubs or country clubs or whatever it is. And so how much of that is friend building and how much of that is direct marketing is kind of difficult to say, but it runs a pretty broad spectrum.
Thank you, Andrew. So I think we can have the second question.
Bonjour, je suis Mireille de la Côte d'Ivoire. Je voudrais poser une question à Giovanni. Alors, quelle est la relation que le point EU entretient avec les CCTLD locaux? Comment le point EU participe au renforcement de ces CCTLD, et également quel a été l'impact de la croissance des points EU sur les taux de croissance des CCTLD? Est-ce que ça a été positif? Est-ce que ça a été négatif? Merci.
Yeah, it's a very good question. As I shown in one of the slides, let's say penetration of the .eu varies a lot in the different European countries. So I think that out of, if I look at the 31 countries whose residents are eligible to register a .eu domain name, the impact, yeah, this one. So you see that what we have seen, there is a pattern that the more there is internet familiarity, internet penetration in one country, the more one country is domain name literate. And not by chance, Germany is our first market, because Germany currently there are over 16 million .de, which is the local country code. There are more than 16 million registered .de domain names, and the second one is the Netherlands, which is also the third in Europe country. So the second in Europe would be United Kingdom, and now I'm getting into politics. But United Kingdom and European Union, sometimes there are some frictions, and British people, they look at the European Union as they are members of the European Union so far. But at some point they may, and they're more exposed, and they're more, let's say, inclined to register a generic top-level domain rather than .eu. And this is again a study that we have done in each of the European Union countries. So I have to say that the impact and penetration of .eu varies from country to country. And to answer your question, what has been the impact on the local CCTLD? Well, what we have seen is that, as I said, we are having a very heavily regulated environment with 3 regulations that are regulations that are approved by the European Parliament and the Council. So if we, at the registry, we wake up in the morning and we say we want to change a regulation, that certainly can be done in 2 months' time. It's usually, on average, in the best case scenario, it's 18 months time process, even to change a comma in the regulation. But the fact that we have been doing well has pushed some countries and some CCTLDs in those countries to do better. And so what we have seen is that since the .eu was launched, we have seen a great uptake of other country codes. And so the .eu has not impacted much the country code, but rather has impacted more the other generic top-level domains, and I'm not saying .com, but others that have been in specific markets, that they have been those mostly impacted by the launch of the .eu. But again, I think the main positive element we should look at in Europe is that because of we have a very clear regulation, although it's very strict, but again, many other registries that have been stimulated to do better. And so we have seen, I can count more than 5 in Europe, that instead of having decreased figures, they did have, great uptakes. And great uptakes, I mean, really several 100,000 new domain names in less than 1 year, because they have decided to change policies and procedures. They have decided to become closer to the market. They have decided to become closer to the registrar community. And by doing that, they have experienced great growth.
Thank you, Giovanni. I think we'll take the last question, then we'll wrap up. Kindly introduce yourself.
My name is Biyola Dikbo again from .ng. I have 2 questions to Giovanni and Andrew. The first is, in determining marketing budgets, given the level of development of CCs in Africa, what would you advise would be the best practice as far as determining marketing budgets are concerned? And then secondly, what would you advise would be the best approach in market mix vis-a-vis traditional and new media?
There are 2 very good questions, and I wish I had the perfect answers for both, but I think if I had, I would be somewhere else in the sense that, it's like I'll be like one of these fortune tellers that can tell you what is the best recipe. I would like to go back to one of the previous questions, which is, yes, we have been monitoring everything that we have been doing, and honestly, if I am thinking about the actions at marketing level that we have developed in 2014, all those we have assessed, the most effective marketing action from a purely cost-effective perspective is an action that costed less than 1,500 euros for us. And this has been the most effective action, which was very openly, because it's public on our site, is that we sponsored a school, a class in a European school. And they participated in a tournament, a basketball and ping pong tournament around Europe. And they happened to win every time. And so they were wearing our logo on their outfit. And the exposure of our logo and the feedback we got from our registrars, the positive feedback we got from the media, showed to us that was the most effective action that we have put in place in 2014. Then, of course, in marketing, there is a component of luck. And this is something that we should not forget. So you should try to customize the marketing and the budget for that marketing, but you shouldn't assume that just by investing millions of dollars or whatever currency you get a great result. Again, my example in 2014 shows that with a little effort you can get a lot. So try to look at your target and try to look at your market, and then once you have done this exercise, you may be able to see that by investing small amounts, you can get a lot. And then just to finish with this, bit of luck, since 3 years, we have been sponsoring this Italian tennis player. And last year, she became US Open champion. And that was by stroke of luck. So we have invested, I'm very open because our budget is public on our site, we have invested for the annual sponsorship of this athlete 65,000 euros. So this is what she was getting from us to have our logo on any tennis competition she was participating. And then in September last year she won the US Open. And our logo, that day, our logo was seen by 93 million people. And our website, we had people, because the final of the US Champion Open was in the evening, European evening, we had to send people in the office to make sure that our website was coping with a huge increase of traffic, which we didn't expect. But in less than 1 hour, we had an exponential growth of traffic, so there were people that had to go physically to the office to make sure everything was up and running. And we had an assessment by somebody working in one of the most famous economic magazines around the world that said that at the time she won, what we paid 65,000 was at that moment worth 2.5 million euros. So by having a campaign after that victory would have costed us 2.5 million, and it costed us 65,000 for an entire year. So my advice would be really to look at the market, customize something, and always, like I've done for the last year, think positive, because again, a bit of luck is the final ingredient in a good recipe.
Thanks, Giovanni. Quick one from Andrew.
Yes. I'm not sure getting that lucky is necessarily strategy, but good on you. A couple of thoughts. Number one is that if you're talking about a CCTLD, to some extent your brand is the country itself, and you've got to figure out how you're going to play that. In a country as large as Nigeria, where you know you're from, you've got so many sub-markets. It may be very, very helpful to hone in on one or two that you want to really focus in on. So who is a .ng, for example? Are you aiming at trying to get young entrepreneurs? Are you aiming at trying to get places in the country that have a lot lower penetration? Are you aiming at trying to rebrand .ng in some, to try and capture a certain kind of energy that already exists out there? I think that those are things that would be important. It'd be great if you sponsored the Super Eagles and they won the Africa Cup of Nations, but that may or may not happen, as we know. That really is pretty incredible. Winning. In terms of the market mix, I think when you're talking about such a large geography and so much penetration of Facebook, it strikes me as a very, very viable opportunity to skew a little bit more in the direction of trying to get people using social media. Just because I know what little I know about Nigeria, I know that there's a tremendous amount of social media use, and you've got such a large area to cover. So those would be two observations.
Thank you, Andrew. I think that was very useful information, very good questions. I think before we close, we should give our friends here, Genius from Marrakesh, a chance to say something. I have one question for you, Bentaleb. Perhaps very briefly tell us what media do you use to reach your new customers, a new audience? What's your main marketing strategy as Genius?
Right now, we are using only online advertising to get new customers. Online advertising and some networking for B2B customers. For high-level customers, only businesses. We using some networking in forums and some events, etc. But the most le canal le plus important, donc I will switch in France. Le canal le plus important pour pouvoir décrocher enfin pour nous pour l'instant, pour pouvoir décrocher des nouveaux clients, c'est la publicité en ligne. Donc Facebook, Google, principalement.
Thank you very much, Bentaleb. I'd like to close the session. First, I think we should give a round of applause to our panel. I think that was very useful information.